Mm. What a fucking idiot. This guy on Twitter, he's stuck in the middle of the road because he had his Tesla in theater mode while he was driving, and then it locked up in theater mode. So when your car's in theater mode, it doesn't drive. So he enabled theater mode because he was like, I'm gonna watch a movie while I'm driving, and then it seized, and now his car's stuck in the middle of the fucking road, and he's like, oh man, fucking Tesla. It's like, no, you stupid asshole. Yeah, like if you buy a fucking a car stereo nowadays that has a pop out screen, like it literally tells you like you cannot fucking watch a movie. We will not enable movie function while the car is in drive. So if you bypass that setting on your car and then you fuck your car up, like apparently he seems to have done, that's not Tesla's fault, man. Fuck Elon Musk, but it's not Tesla. It's not his fault. That's you bypassing the safety function and then mad that it worked. Shut my phone. Yeah, man. I think Demolition Man had the best example of a hybrid driving system. Like the cars all sync up and drive one behind the other, but you can take over manually just at any time. Are you there? Because your video froze. Okay, just good to be aware. In the management group, I posted something for Byron for you guys to look at because they're doing a One Piece world event next this month, the 22nd, 23rd. It's a Zoom event with a whole lot of shit that seems right up his fucking alley. They're gonna talk about the movies. And he loved. Oh, 8 o'clock. Talk to you after.
All right. Let's see if the cat shows up. There we go. Hey, cat. You can't get down here to get petted. I'm working. And I just realized that's going out live. So let's fade the video over so I can stop talking to my cat, which is appearing in the background every now and then. Or my brother's cat, I should say. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about nerd news that has happened over the past week since our last show the previous Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber, first person shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, Burley underscore adopter on Twitter, a couple of other places doing some other things. Joining me tonight is the wonderful, the also hairless and bearded, but much more suave. Lewis, introduce yourself if you would.
Hey everyone! As always, anytime I'm on the show, I'd love to say that I'm happy to be here. For those of you who are new to the show, my name's Louis Correa, also known as Crash the Stampede on Twitch, and a lot of my other things. Crash the Photo. If you want to look at some of my photos on Facebook, I'm a co-producer with Nerd Caliber. Uh, so we have a lot of good things that we're going to talk about today. No Ezra Miller this time.
Thank God.
For today, but
not that there wasn't something that could have been put on the docket, but it, anyway.
Yeah. It's we got everybody deserves a break now and again.
Exactly.
So if you're in the chat, by all means, this is a live show, guys. So if you guys have an opinion, something you want to share with us, go right ahead. We're monitoring the chat, so we'll take a look, see, we'll try to respond to you as best as we can. But otherwise, enjoy the show.
And we're going to start the show with our first topic, which is the first of two MCU. I know rumors isn't the right word because they're actually statements. we'll start with the first one because it's the most bizarre one. That is, of course, Doctor Doom on your screen right there. And the news is that there's apparently some sort of Doctor Doom product in the works, not like planned, but in the works, coming out of the MCU, either a movie or maybe a streaming show. And the reason we know that is that because Howard Stern, on a hot mic that he thought was off at some event, said that he had been talking to Marvel about a role in this Doctor Doom project and was wondering whether he should reach out to Robert Downey Jr. for advice on acting and acting in the MCU. He didn't say this he didn't say this to whoever was at the event. He thought the mic was off, but it was a hot mic, and he was saying it to, I guess, Robin Quivers. Howard Stern is apparently in talks to do something in an upcoming Doctor Doom movie. I hope it's not playing Doctor Doom, but
that'd be weird.
That would be very weird. I'm not sure. That would be a take on Doom that I don't think that they could support.
Honestly, considering what the last movie take of Doctor Doom, like at this point, I'll take anything because God, those depictions were awful, awful, awful. And whoever came up with that idea, for legal purposes, our legal department has said that this is a joke, but they should be shot on sight.
And it's a shame too, because I really like Toby Kebbell as an actor. I think he's outstanding. Any of the work he's done with Guy Ritchie, fantastic. John, welcome to the chat. And Waluigi Land, welcome to the chat. John, thank you very much for the top chat donation. John asks or says, "Don't believe the Doctor Doom thing. There is no Doom plan on the board. He knew the mic was hot. He's done this before." You're probably, from the sound of it, way more familiar with the way Howard Stern functions, and I would absolutely say that's as valid as this article I am reading. I wouldn't put it past him. I don't know any examples in the past where he's done that, but again, I'm sure he has. Why would he, though? Let's speculate. Why would Howard Stern talk about a fake Doctor Doom movie?
He is the king of intrigue. He does like to stir the pot. So I'll give him that. Like I can see it both ways. Like I kind of agree with John because like historically speaking with Howard Stern, he kind of full of shit a lot of time. But he could have just been messing around. But also maybe there's sometimes the best lies have a kernel of truth to them.
That is true. And maybe he's in talks to do something with Marvel. Who knows what? And just decided to throw this Doctor Doom stuff out. Or again, maybe it was just complete bull. Either way, if there is a Doctor Doom thing in the immediate plans or reasonably immediate plans, unlike what John seems to think, I would be very happy. I also don't think that they would pull that as a complete surprise. You look how they announced Blade 2 years ago, and it's not going to happen for another 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's Blade. Blade's a popular franchise, but it's not Doctor Doom. So John, I thank you for bringing us down to earth. I think you're probably right. I still kind of hope there's something there.
I mean, I would love a Doctor. I love Doctor Doom. I think he's one of the best damn villains, and like, there's so much complexity to that character. Like, I think my biggest problem with conceptualizing Doctor Doom as a movie is everyone always wants to put like a big spin on it. Like twist a character like him around in certain ways and make him like empathetic and give him a redemption arc and all that. And like, no, man, like Doctor Doom, he's cool as hell. But one of the best things about Doctor Doom is he emotionally manipulates you. So you think like, he's on the cusp of being a good guy, maybe an anti-hero. And then he gets you, he screws you over, does something else, and and he never. I remember one of my fondest comic books, Fantastic Four comic books, had to do with a recent defeat by the Fantastic Four, and one of his lackeys was like, "Oh, sir, you've come back from one of your recent defeats." And Doom's like, "Oh, cool, 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 cool. I'm working on a project. See that switch over there? Go flip that switch for me." And the minion goes over and flips the switch and gets electrocuted to death. And Doom goes on a rant. And he's like, "Doom is never defeated. He is thwarted, deterred, perhaps pushed or kept away, but he is never defeated." And I'm like, yeah, yeah, you're the kind of bad guy I like.
Yep.
You're the kind of bad guy I like.
And neither portrayal of Doctor Doom in either of the Fantastic Four franchises, or franchise and then wannabe franchise, even came close to that. You had in the original Doctor Doom, or original Fantastic Four duology, with Jessica Alba and Ewan Griffith and so on. That was more of a normal evil villain type character than certainly what Toby Kebbell did in Fan Four Stick or whatever it's called. Um, but even that just had none of the level of menace. There are actors out there who could pull off the level of menace you need with Doctor Doom, and so far nobody has.
Yeah, absolutely. The electrocution powers. Oh man, that pissed me off.
That was so stupid. All right, so moving on to our next topic, we're going to stick with the MCU, and this is coming straight out of the horse's mouth in an interview with the New York Times. That is Taron Egerton, from obviously Kingsman. Actually, this might have been from the second one, Golden Circle, but portraying Eggsy. The news is that one of the fan favorite recastings of Wolverine might happen. Egerton said to the New York Times that he has been in discussions with Kevin Feige and other Marvel studio executives about taking on the role of Wolverine. Everybody, well, not everybody, there is a huge fan base around the idea of giving this role to Egerton. He is clearly a really good actor. He certainly can get jacked. Watch The Kingsman. And he's short. He's like 5'4", I think, or 5'5".
Yeah.
And that is one of the problems that a lot of people have had with other portrayals. I mean, I think everybody universally loves Hugh Jackman's portrayal, but Hugh Jackman is 6 foot or 5'11". And that's always been sort of a problem for the comic book purists. I mean, if this guy can take on Elton John, and not that Wolverine sings, but he actually sang all of the songs in that movie, I'm absolutely fine with the idea of him being cast as Wolverine.
I would like to see a mock-up, but I think he's actually a superb actor, and outside of like seeing a mock-up, like I mean, I think in terms of nerd caliber and staffing, I'm the one that's more flexible than just about anybody in terms of these type of things, because I'm not, as much as a purist I am about a great many things, fictional stuff I'm not a purist about. I don't, I can see different types of depictions happening, and I can definitely see him like taking over that role and actually doing a good job.
There is, you can easily Google search this, Taron Egerton Wolverine on a Google image search. There's plenty of actual fan art of that look. I didn't grab one for this just because I don't know what the provenance of it, who the creator is and how to properly credit it. This is a screenshot from a movie, and so therefore it is Universal, whoever did Kingsman. It's the promotional shot they put out, so we don't have a problem with that.
Understandable.
But there's plenty of them out there. It's really easy to find. And they look pretty good, I have to say. They generally, the ones I've seen, don't give him quite so crazy a Wolverine hair.
Where's the fun in that?
Exactly. If you're not going to have the crazy hair, why
do it?
And then, of course, it doesn't say, he doesn't say whether or not there's any, or doesn't give any indication of when anything like that would happen if he did get cast, or how it would happen. You know, there's no indication of when any sort of X-Man of any ilk winds up in the MCU. He just says he's been in talks.
Considering the Doctor Strange thing, I don't think it's far off.
Yeah, I think you're right. But again, it's one of those things where that's such a huge IP. Why would you sneak it in to something? Now,
Well, I mean, honestly, going by the way Marvel's been does a lot of these things, they tend to like drop little nuggets of things throughout their movies and shows, and then kind of build up to it. And they've been doing that with X-Men. I mean, you had the thing in Doctor Strange 2 and a few other things here and there. So,
yeah.
like, I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't already been in works with a movie that they just kind of slipped under the radar by distracting with other stuff.
It just occurred to me that that thing in Doctor Strange 2, Scarlet Witch doesn't exist in that universe until, 616 Wanda made it into that universe through the way that happens in that movie. Anyway, completely different speculation. You know what? I forgot. I should go over the rounds here. Over here on Facebook, I apologize for not getting to the chats on the other platforms here right off the bat. I'm doing this on a laptop, and I don't have my two giant monitors that I usually do this on. But Sophia, welcome to the show. Yes, cats are so awesome, although this cat jumped off once it realized it wasn't going to be getting any actual attention. And over there on the YouTubes, and you're on YouTube now, Sophia. Hello on YouTube. You realized that I wasn't getting to the Facebook chat. Good for you. All right, moving on to our next topic. This one's going to be just a sort of a quick hit because there isn't really much news about this, but this is a photo from day 2 of Anime Expo this year from Anime News Network. And it was Anime News Network that I first saw tweeted out a photo of this lobby area on day 1 looking this crowded or even more. And basically saying the fire marshals and the LA Convention Center had shut down admission into Anime Expo on its first day because too many people were being allowed in, in just massive elbow-to-elbow droves of attendees. In fact, they actually have here the time. I think they have the time here. 9:44 a.m. Pacific time, which jibes with when I first saw the post. Fire marshal halted attendees entering the event. That's, bad management on their part. But Anime Expo, as you recall, because we talked about this, went back on its policy within one day where it had dropped its mask mandate and its, proof of vaccine policy, and then went back and put it back into place based on complaints. It's going to be really tough for anybody to look at this and see this, but right in the front, there are at least a half a dozen people without masks, even though they had reinstated the mandatory mask policy.
So I will offer a bit of speculation and some of the things that I've heard. But before I go into anything that I've heard, I like to reiterate for people who are watching that these are secondhand things. So this is not news. These are things that people have been saying that attended the convention. Yep. So grain of salt, take it for what it is. So one of the things that I've seen is somebody was walking around with a CO2 monitor, and the CO2 level was off the charts, meaning that the system to recycle air was not functioning properly, allegedly. So there was that. In a situation like that, where the air system, air filtration system is not functioning well, you almost will have a 90, 99% chance that a lot of people will get COVID. So there was that. There were other people who were alleging that upon entering the convention center, they were given a bracelet that said that they were vaccinated without being checked. No verification of vaccination status or anything, or masks for that. They just walked in, security handed it over, and they just kept going. Mm-hmm. And they were, pointing that out a lot on Twitter specifically. There's a whole lot going on there. There's a whole lot. Allegedly, a staff member came forward and said that they're not necessarily to blame because they were kind of pushed in this situation where they were told one thing and then another thing happened, and then they were just completely understaffed for the sheer amount of people that were walking through that door, and they were kind of left out to dry, so to speak, by management. Again, allegations. So we'll see how it turns out going forward in the next couple of weeks in terms of all these things, because there's a lot of buzz. That CO2 thing has been viral lately. Like there's a whole lot of buzz going on about it. I'm eager to see where they're going to go, especially with the fire marshal being there, walking the area. Like what if any will the fire marshal say as a press release, because they're going to catch some blame. So they're obviously going to damage control. Yeah. So I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen,
Yeah, I would be really skeptical of the whole CO2 claim, but that doesn't mean that the thing that it's saying wasn't a problem. They may very well have had the air recycling system completely overwhelmed.
That too, yeah.
And that may be the case. I am very confident in the other statement about the lack of checking of vaccine status and so on. That happened at Anime NYC, and that's not. I mean, that's secondhand reports, but those were our reporters on the scene who were watching this happen.
Yeah.
So, is this going to be a super spreader? Absolutely. There's no question that PortCon, Maine, the same weekend, right up there from where I'm at, in South Portland, Maine, I've already seen a half dozen reports of Facebook friends and cosplayers I know who have COVID from that relatively small con. So yeah, Anime Expo, and I'm sure that they were overwhelmed and understaffed. When I was running the photo department at Anime Boston this year, every aspect of Anime Boston was understaffed. Every department. Yeah. And I'm sure the same thing was happening at Anime Expo, and I know they were just swamped with, attendees. I have, again, cosplay friends who went there for the very first time this year. So they had tons of newbies and regulars, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And since Rodney had brought up Anime Boston, I'd like to reiterate and remind people that your friends at Nerd Caliber were looking out for you at Anime Boston by providing COVID tests at our table for free. You just had to walk up and just ask for one, or even just take it off the table. We didn't care. We had quite like a couple hundred. At least 200. And for you Genshin cosplayers who came up and basically robbed me blind for no reason at all, you guys are weird. You could have just asked.
Oh, I don't want to say that Genshin is the new. Well, no, never would.
Yeah, I don't want to get demonetized or assaulted on the street by people dressed up.
More like it. It's very popular. Let's put it that way. All right, so we'll keep following this to find out if there's what outcome happens either with Anime Expo's higher ups, whether they make any changes to policy, anything like that, and how many people I know who attended get COVID.
Yeah, and for you guys who are watching in the chat, or later on if you're watching this as a VOD, leave us a comment about it. I'd like to know your opinion on it too, kind of get an idea of how you guys feel about that mess.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to our next topic. This is a panel from a web comic, a comic that was put on N.D. Stevenson's Twitter page, which was a real cool statement and way to make a statement about N.D. Stevenson's new gender identity and pronouns and so on. N.D. Stevenson, if you don't know, is the creator of She-Ra and the Princess of Power. The upcoming Nimora or Nimona movie that Disney basically quashed before Netflix stepped in and said, "Hey, we're going to make it." Nimona, the graphic novel Lumberjanes, really talented creator. Officially, as a professional, he is going to be N.D. Stevenson still going forward, but now we know he and he is Nate. Still, according to the article, not entirely sure that he is, in fact, anything other than non-binary, but he feels much more comfortable with the he/him pronouns and his new first name, although he is keeping his middle name Diana. So it's a wonderful way. It's really easy to find this this whole tweet thread. You can search the articles that are about it, but it's a wonderful way to do this sort of introduction to and sort of coming out with a new gender identity. So good on Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. Handshakes and high fives all around for that one. Like well deserved. And I think the more we continue to normalize these type of things, the more it'll happen. It'll happen. People feel more comfortable once it becomes such a normal thing in everyday life. Hopefully we will not have jerks who get pissed off about things like that while still referring to items as they and their and Mr. and Miss, but at the same time can't understand pronouns and other things like that.
And if we do, hopefully they're like Jordan Peterson, who got thrown off Twitter because he deliberately misgendered Elliot Page when complaining about Elliot's top surgery. Which...
Yeah, another thing that's nobody's business.
Exactly. None of his effing business. It's horrible that we have to deal with these people in a situation where we should be celebrating somebody becoming the person they really are. And they're idiots who just can't accept that.
It's crazy that we can accept young boys becoming men and congratulating them on the transition, and we can congratulate young girls becoming young women, and we can give them quinceañeras and things like that to celebrate those transitions, but yet we can't grasp the concept of someone transitioning into the person they want to be. The peacocks, who open their feathers, they become beautiful. They become who they want without stressing every day about balancing secrets versus the truth. We should be celebrating that kind of thing instead of getting mad at them. It's none of your concern. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you if you're cis or not cis. It shouldn't matter to you. It's not your business. Let people be happy with who they are in a miserable world.
Yes. Yeah. And if you don't like the very accepting kind of content that these people create, don't participate in it. Don't read it. Don't watch it. It's your call.
Yeah. It's as simple as that. I think one of the most miserable things really in this type of situation is that you can very well just if you're a diehard refusing to accept these type of things, okay, but you don't get to be invited to these things. You don't get to participate in these things. And the fact that you don't like it, but you want to be there says something about yourself. It's very telling that you want to be there, but you also want to have your shitty opinion on top of it. You can have your shitty opinion anywhere you want, but when you're like told you can't be in this area or in this space at this party because of the things you've said, take accountability. At least own what you're saying. Stop trying to be in the space of other people and then mad that you're excluded in a space that you said you don't want to be there to begin with. It's so weird. It's so weirdly possessive. It makes you sound like a creep.
Possessive is the right word. Everything about these people is about their possession and their ability to be the possessor.
Yeah. And super sidebar, I won't go into it, but Umbrella Academy, the way they treated Elliot Page,
season 4
guys,
season 3 is arguably the best season, tied with season 1 maybe, but even there are things about season 3, and not even talking about how they handled Elliot Page. It's wonderful. If you're a fan of Umbrella Academy and you have not watched season 3 yet, jump on that.
Literally, you people who don't like trans people, or who have no, or people who maybe you've never had an experience with a trans person and you don't know how to act, watch season 3 and watch how the family treats Elliot, and watch specifically how Luther treats Elliot when Elliot comes out.
Yeah, all of them. Also Diego,
yes, but Luther is the one that seemed to, you had the impression that he had a problem with it, but it wasn't. He was just big dopey guy who just, it took 2 seconds to click. He didn't know how to respond to that. But the moment when the situation was presented to him, my man stepped up. He knew exactly what he wanted to say. No hesitation.
Yeah. Again, won't give it away, but that particular scene, I kind of teared up a little bit.
Oh yeah. I was touched.
It was very.
I was touched.
Speaking of somebody who was touched, but not in that way, this, in case you can't tell, is Dolores Umbridge. The reason I chose this photo, it has nothing to do with Dolores specifically, is that I don't want to put up a photo of that TERF JK Rowling, which is what this current story does have to do with. So there was a press event in the UK for the Warner Brothers Studio Tour London, the making of the Harry Potter attraction, which is apparently a Warner Brothers Studio Tour thing in the UK. A freelancer working for Sky News asked a question of JK Rowling, who was at the event, and then a hired non-employee, so again, I guess another freelancer, for the Warner Brothers PR team stepped in and just shut that reporter off, said, that's it, next question, please. Warner Brothers then turned around and instead of saying that, whatever they might say, they said this. And this is a quote: Warner Brothers has enjoyed a creative, productive, and fulfilling partnership with J.K. Rowling for the past 20 years. She is one of the world's most accomplished storytellers, and we are proud to be the studio to bring her vision, characters, and stories to life now and for decades to come.
No, suck my ass. Excuse me for everybody. I've been trying not to swear, but
I agree with you 100% in that that take on this statement. Warner Brothers just made it abundantly clear that they will in no way, shape, or form change their working relationship with Rowling, despite the fact that she continues to be one of the most vocal anti-trans celebrities on the internet. It's Warner Brothers, it's money. That's the only reason for them to make that statement.
Companies and corporation, man. Anytime when it's the bottom line, they'll say whatever, because at the end of the day, there's so many people who still love Harry Potter, who still play the video games and read the books and pass it down to the next generation. And so they're confident in that money because that money is still rolling in. When that money starts eventually to dry up, maybe then they're gonna do their backpedaling and be like, oh, we've realized that blah blah blah, and maybe this isn't the course. So we're sorry that we said these mean old things. Please love us again. Now that we have another franchise that we want to promote and make a lot of cash off of.
Yeah.
And what did she really write? She wrote a magical version of Star Wars. So awesome, great. You copied something else and then you put your own spin on it and you made a fortune, and then you had the opportunity to lead by example and show the world that as a wealthy person you could have done a measure of good, but instead you wanted to be there's a word that I want to say in Spanish, but I think the algorithm will understand it and demonetize us, so I'm not going to say it, but the English translation rhymes with runt.
Yeah, and for anybody who's really interested in some really bizarre, an Ewok yells that at Leia at one point. Go back and watch that movie. There's an Ewok says that word to Leia at one point.
Yeah, and then JK probably made like one of the allegory Jewish folk in her book say it as well.
Probably. So I am still, to some extent, a fan of the Harry Potter books. I'm less so the more I realize there's a lot of really problematic portrayals of certain groups of people in those books. But a lot of what Rowling did in those books, I admire. I absolutely do not admire, J.K. Rowling as a person, clearly, anymore. But I don't know that, her intellectual property franchise is ever going to get to the point where Warner Brothers is going to, not make enough money off of it to go, oh, you know what? Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe in retrospect, she was not the greatest person. Look at, the Cthulhu mythos.
I was literally thinking that.
I mean, it's hugely popular still, despite the fact that we now know that Lovecraft was just terrible. I mean,
don't ever Google the name of his cat.
Oh yeah, one of the most blatant racists. Anyway.
Yeah, a friend of ours, Kels Ferguson, is making a good discussion on her Facebook about Death of an Author, something that her partner had also suggested as well.
Yeah.
And I think, in my personal opinion wise, I think these type of situations are not as black and white as people on Twitter want you to believe. Like, you can't always divest yourself from something that you really, really care about. And people who say, yes, you can, are people who don't have that level of intimacy with whatever you're talking about. And therefore, it's easy being on the outside to say black and white. But there's always going to be things that you're going to struggle with as a person, and you have to decide where and when you want to put a line in the sand in terms of what are you going to tolerate. That goes for just about everything in life, but also Harry Potter. There's a lot of people who enjoy it, but then struggle with the fact that any money that they put into purchasing items goes to her to some degree. Yeah. And there's ways to offset it. You want to buy the books for like your niece and nephew, buy it from like a secondhand thrift store where it doesn't go to her, things like that. But at the same time, I think it's very pertinent to understand discussions about those things, not to dismiss the troublesome aspects, but to have discussions about it. Use it as an example to educate people on what TERFs are, what is bad, what is good, what could be taken as a slur or not taken in a negative way. What are the stereotypes in those books? It's good educational fodder to grow people's minds if you approach it the right way.
Yeah, and since you grow people's minds, TERF, in case anybody doesn't know, stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. The idea is basically that trans women are not women, and therefore should not be included in any movements or efforts to forward feminism.
Yes, something the gentlemen here at Nerd Caliber do not subscribe to.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I mean, we just a year before COVID shut down, so 2019, LeakyCon, which is a big Harry Potter con that travels around to different venues, was in Boston. And we went, we took photos. Um, Greg actually made connections with some people within Harry Potter cosplay community. Um, we didn't bring it up, but I guarantee that 50% of the people, if we said, how do you feel about the whole JK Rowling thing, would basically say, I don't support her at all, but I love this creation enough that I want to continue to be part of the creation. You make your own costume and you pretend to be somebody, that money doesn't go to Rowling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, you struggle with that, that's good sometimes to struggle about those things. It's the same with other fandoms, Star Wars. Nobody hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans is a common thing to say now. But at the same time, when you look at it and you think about the hatred and what's happening, you can see, yeah, that there's some validity to certain things, but a lot of it is just really ridiculous bullshit. But at the same time, learning to embrace some of those things uh, helps people. I mean, I have friends who never gave a shit about the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, but when they saw Ray, they envisioned someone of themselves. So even if you felt Ray was stupid and Mary Sue and whatever, at the same time, you don't have to rob other people of their view if they find that person enchanting. You don't have to be a shitbag about it. And it's the same thing with Harry Potter. Some people, I know people who saw themselves in Hermione, some people who saw themselves as other characters or wanted to be in that fictional world, and they had that level of escapism. So you don't have to go in there and shit on it and like, well, yeah, she's a fucking derf. You don't have to go around doing that, but you can have discussions.
Yes.
You can talk about that stuff. You can, provide a level of education if the person wants it.
That is true, if the person wants it. Anyway, I wish Warner Brothers would reconsider, but it's not ever gonna, and we're just gonna have to, put up with, more garbage content, probably, like the Fantastic Beasts movies,
Yeah.
as they continue to milk the heck out of this thing.
And you definitely know that part of it is the probably ridiculously ironclad contract that they have where they where they have to suck her toes and do other shit to make her happy. So they got to defend her because they put so much money into this contract that in theory will provide them a larger increase in funding over time.
Yeah. I mean, you just think about the amount of money that they must have spent in the actual creation and development of the Wizarding World.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a gigantic building project, and if they do something where she, and I don't know what their contract is, but she may be able to pull out of a contract at any time.
Yeah.
That's stuff that they literally would have to tear down or turn into something else. The the sorcering world of Harry Potter.
It'll be like that other topic we covered a couple of weeks ago with the Witcher school.
Yeah. Oh God.
We got to rebrand it.
Oh. Go look that one up, folks. That's
the school of goats who hunt monsters. The Witcher, right. Witcher, Witcher.
The Witcher.
Witcher.
All right, moving on to our last topic, folks. We had some interesting stuff earlier. This is interesting, and this is really cool. These are two covers, images from two covers of the current ongoing Edge of the Spider-Verse 5-issue limited series. The one on the left is from issue 4, that's coming up in August, I believe, and the one on the right is from issue 5, the last one in the run, and that is coming out in September. Two characters are going to be utilized, and in the second one introduced, in these upcoming issues that are fantastic examples of representation and diversity. And we're going to start with the one that actually was created back in 2019 and already appeared in another Spider-Verse miniseries, and that is Sun Spider. That's the one on the left in the image there, with the black and orange and red suit. And yes, those are canes that Sun Spider is holding. Charlotte Weber, love that name, absolutely love
Yes.
that name. And Charlotte Weber and Sun Spider have EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So they need the canes to walk about, but they also utilize them as part of their entire retinue of skills and weapons. The web shooters shoot out of the end of the cane. This was created in 2019 as part of a fan submission contest. And I'm going to have to get the name correct. It's Dane Broder or Border.
And in the Nerd Caliber tradition of butchering names,
yes,
we maintain that record.
Dane Broder did the submission, which was the winning one. Ran in 2019 in not Edge of the Spider-Verse. It was another Spider-Verse before then. I can't find it right off the top of my head here. But the character was introduced, had an appearance in that one issue, and is now being brought back for issue number 4. These stories in this Edge of Spider-Verse, each issue focuses very specifically on one spider persona, I guess is what they call it. I was going to say spider person, but Spider Rex, which is literally a Spider-Man T-Rex. I don't think
Yeah, one variant, we can use that term, because they are all variants.
And so it will focus, there will be 3 stories within each issue focusing specifically on that one variant. So in the original appearance of Sun Spider, Charlotte Weber or Sun Spider was just one of many characters in that issue's story. This issue, I'm going to use they because I don't know. Dane Broder uses they, and so I'm going to assume Charlotte uses they. But
that's fair.
I'm not really sure. I have seen in some of the articles referencing Charlotte as she. Let's just say that.
Yeah, we can default to they. That's fine.
Yeah. And so they will be the focus of that 1/3. That one. That's their story alone. And for the so many, and I'm shocked, or I was shocked. I've got over the shock of how many friends, cosplay friends, Facebook friends I have who have EDS. I didn't realize it was so widespread a problem. Getting that representation for them is fantastic. When this popped up, the reason I realized that this was a thing is that it started dropping on my Facebook like every 3rd post. Once somebody who was dealing with EDS saw it, it was just like, oh my God, and then, have you seen this? And then, oh my... And clearly they are super happy to have this representation. So our next image, we'll go back to the image here. The one on the right is a brand new character, and will be in issue number 5. This is Web Weaver, and Web Weaver is the very first openly gay spider variant. And the design of this character, you can see a little bit of it in this image with the high collar and the ruffles.
It's just beautiful.
It is. The rest of the whole costume is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And they do. So the writer, who was one of the creators of this, Steve Fox, said, something I realized immediately when conceiving Web Weaver is that he can't and shouldn't represent all gay men. No single character can. His fearlessly femme identity is central to who he is, but it's not the story. And I think that's clearly, this is a gay character who is high femme and fabulous about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just by looking at the, the pose and everything. Absolutely. And you know what? That's fantastic. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Making a character like that, but also not centralizing it and exploiting it.
Right. Fox said very clearly that, that's their gay identity is not the center of the story. And just like in issue 4, all of the Edge of the Spider-Verse issues, Web Weaver's third of the comic will be Web Weaver's story. That's it. It will be focusing entirely on that character. And the fact that they're giving them these focuses, I think is wonderful. I think it's so good, such great representation. There's a million spider folk out there. And particularly as they do more of these, Spider-Verse explorations, they just keep getting more and more of them.
Yeah.
And, if you can have a Spider Ham and a Spider T-Rex, Spider Rex, thank God you finally got a gay Spider-Man. I mean, how?
Yeah. And, and now this is something that I always like to address in terms of comic books and things like that, because I hear this so many times, and honestly, it pisses me off. The people who it's written for are the ones who decide if they're being pandered to. Cis person over here on the left and right, you don't get to decide what is pandering. The same with when white people are like, oh, they're pandering to the black character or the minority character. We decide if we're being pandered to, not you. You have no stake in the race. That looking in from the outside bullshit doesn't fly in regards to the type of things, because we're the ones that don't get that type of representation all the time. So we're the ones who get to decide if we're being pandered to. And people, I've heard and I've seen people always say things like, yeah, well, why don't you make an original character instead of just like taking this cis man's role? No one's taking that damn role. Peter Parker still exists. Peter Parker is still one of the most renowned Spider-Man characters in the universe, in reality. Like, no one's stopped with that bullshit, because that's never going to change. Yep. That's always going to remain consistent. But what's important is when you want to bring something outwards to the larger masses, sometimes you need to use a vehicle to do that. So if using Edge of the Spider-Verse and variations of Spider-Man and characters who were bitten by radioactive bugs who weren't Peter Parker and who become, in essence, Spider-Man of that universe, allows someone with EDS or someone who's struggling with their role, their sexuality, or their gender roles to relate and maybe like be happy for a little bit, then shut the hell up. Let them enjoy that. Let them have that representation. You get all your representation. You're good. You're so saturated with what you want that you don't ever have to worry about not feeling a part of something. So let these people enjoy that. Let people who are like Web Weaver, or who consider friends like Web Weaver, or have people in their lives like Web Weaver and Sun Spider, to enjoy those things and stop trying to argue pandering and original characters in a universe and in a world that you know nothing about.
Yeah, and remember, anybody who is complaining like that, you were also complaining when Miles Morales was introduced. So you really didn't want a black and Latin Spider-Man? Well, tough.
Wait, who was complaining about that?
Anybody who might be also complaining about having.
Oh, I misunderstood. You said you meant Universal U.
I meant Universal U, not you, obviously.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm gonna drive out to you right now.
Yeah, I'm like 40 miles closer too, so that's less of a trip.
But but that is a very valid point you made there. They did the same bullshit with Miles Morales. And look at him. He's one of the most popular Spider-Man characters out there. Like, yep. Like, except for that terrible Thor thing, which we were not going to go into.
Oh God,
Look at my Tims.
that was so
The
bad.
hood Asgard. That guy. Oh my God. I hope that guy gets beat up somewhere.
That's going to go down as one of the worst choices that was ever made by a creator and greenlit by an editor.
Yeah.
100%. Um,
Beyond tone deaf. It was
oh,
it was like borderline black exploitation.
pretty close, actually. Um, all right, that's it, folks. That is our show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the people in the chat. I'm glad for all of your interactivity. It was wonderful. Um, throw up the quick Patreon request if you want to go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. We'd love to have you check it out. We'd definitely love to have you be a patron. We've only got 3 tiers, and the lowest one is just $2 a month. Well, it is money that we would use to go to more cons as cons are coming back, hopefully safely. We'll still see. Um, but yeah, so patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Lewis, give us a goodbye.
Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight. Had a great dialogue, a lot of fantastic things that we talked about. John, thank you for that donation. It's very much appreciated. That $20 will help us, as Rodney said, go to more conventions and other things like that and bring more content to the universe at large as Nerd Caliber. So thank you once again. Unfortunately, I'm going to be on vacation next week, so it's going to be the white version of me and somebody else. my variant, so don't get mad at him, you know.
Yes, older, very much whiter Lewis.
Strikingly.
Strikingly older.
Strikingly. I was going to say handsome, but then for some reason my mic cut out.
Yeah, blame the equipment, pal. All right, folks, thank you very much. We will see you at an upcoming show. We'll see you at upcoming cons. We will have teams at Kineticon. We'll have teams at Terrificon. Fan Expo Boston, Pop Cult Anime Con. You know, the summer's happening, and then the fall gets crazy. So we'll see you at an upcoming con or next week's show.